Okay, so it's time to review round 20 of the NRL and round 3 of the NRLW. Some really interesting results this weekend. In the NRL, the Broncos were the only team with a bye, so they get a free 2 points. The NRL ladder looks really interesting, and the NRLW, only one away side did not win this weekend. So there's some really interesting results there. 2 sides are yet to win, only one unbeaten side in the NRLW. The NRL, some coaches under pressure, so without any further ado, let's dive in. We'll start with the Dolphins Cowboys. Dolphins 43, Cowboys 24. Dolphins still outside the top 8. That points differential goes in their favour. However, the Cowboys, their season's fast unravelling. Todd Payton is a coach under pressure, and their defence is the second worst in the league. Now, the concern I have for the Dolphins is not their attack, it is their defence. Their attack keeps bailing them out. If they get stuck in a game which becomes an arm wrestle, and so therefore their attack is less potent because of that arm wrestle, their defence is a bit of a concern. But, hey, they're still within a shout of making the top 8. There are teams above them that have been a little bit indifferent lately. It's a right battle to make the top 8. The Dolphins have still got a massive chance. That points differential with their for and against points scored, points conceded is really strong. So that goes in their favour. Cowboys, though, their season's fast slipping out of their hands. They need to try and turn things around, or teams above them to start losing as well, and they pick up wins here or there. Todd Payton is a coach under some significant pressure if results do not improve, and if they miss the top 8, he could be potentially on the hot seat. Sharks Roosters, crucial result, crucial win for the Sharks, 31 points to 18. Had the Sharks lost this game, I think the Dolphins would have been in the top 8. This is how close it is now. That points differential the Dolphins have is their wild card, but the Sharks win 31 points to 18. The Roosters, I mean, look, I think they're doing better than people expected this season. I didn't expect them to be a top 8 side. It's a rebuilding year for them. They've had some heavy defeats, although they've had some really, fighting wins. They've had some good wins. They're a fun side to watch as a neutral, I will say that. They are a fun side to watch. And Mark Nwonganitawase is the second highest try scorer. He's second place on try scored this season. So they are exciting to watch. The Sharks, their form's been indifferent lately. Fitzgibbon's a coach under pressure. Nico Hines is a player under pressure, but they get a crucial win at this time of the season in post-Origin against a rival for the top 8, which keeps the Sharks in the top 8. So an important win for the Sharks there. The Panthers, Rabbitohs. Panthers win 30 points to 10. They're starting to build some momentum. The Panthers are looking scary, considering how bad their start to the season was with that lengthy losing streak after Vegas. They are a team to watch. They are potentially a dark horse for the Premiership. You cannot discount the Panthers, even though they've had some bad defeats this season, and no side has defended a Premiership after losing, I think, 7 of their first 8 games or something like that. With the record they had to start the season after their win in Vegas, they would make history if they not only were to make the grand final but to win the grand final. The Bunnies, however, considering they had a strong start to the season, their form has just disintegrated, and they could potentially end up with a wooden spoon this year if their form continues to nosedive. Wayne Bennett, as a coach, has never had a wooden spoon. There's always a first time for everything. Yes, they got injuries. You can say that. Yes, some of their players are not playing into form right now. You could say that. But I still think the same problems with the Bunnies and their roster, with, whatever the issues are at that club within that roster are still persisting. So we're talking about Latrell Mitchell. We're talking about Cody Walker. We're talking about the leadership group of this team. Those same problems that got Demetriou the sack, and ultimately were a hangover from Wayne Bennett's previous stint in charge, and you could argue even Seibold's stint in charge. There's still some issues there that have never been resolved, and you've got to look at their roster makeup and now start questioning their depth as well. Some of the signings they've made, some of their depth they have or don't have. There's problems at the Bunnies, and it's not a quick fix. The Raiders Eels. No one expected the Raiders to be top of the ladder after 20 rounds, and I'm a Raiders fan, and I was expecting them to be around the top 8, like mid-table, not first overall. Pre-season, a lot of people thought they would get the wooden spoon. I did raise an eyebrow when Ricky Stewart was extended as head coach when he signed that contract extension. That's proven a masterstroke by the board. they continue to defy logic, the Raiders. They are playing so well. They're an exciting young team to watch. The young players are stepping up really well. And at some point, they've got to lose a game. They're another team on a lengthy winning streak. At some point, they have to lose a game. They just have to, right? I'm hoping when they do lose a game, it's not the grand final. But the way they're playing, I think they're the best. They are the best team in the league right now. Just not only with their standing, but if I was to do a power rankings, the Raiders would be the best team in the league right now. Just with the way they're playing, they play with no fear. They're exciting. They can score points almost at will. Some of the tries they score are ridiculous. They can bash you up the middle, or they can just throw it around and score some highlight reels. Eels, rebuilding season. I mean, look, they've had a tough season, the Eels. But they're showing some fight. There's some green shoots there. I think Jason Riles is the right coach to lead this team forward through the rebuild and into next season and the seasons after. But when you're coming up against the hottest team in the league and you lose, there's no shame in that. They still scored 16 points. So the Eels have their attack is starting to work. They're showing some fight, but there's reset and go another day for the Eels. It's a tough season. It's a rebuilding season. I'm not going to knock them for the defeat. The Bulldogs Dragons, the Lockie Galvin discussion. Has Toby Sexton been done the dirty? Is Galvin the future? This discussion's not going to go away unless the Bulldogs win the grand final or make the grand final. Again, the Bulldogs, much like the Raiders, no one expect them to be good this season. I do think Galvin's introduction to the squad has disrupted things a little bit. They've also had players out injured and suspended, so the Bulldogs haven't been able to put their full strength lineup on the field since about round 5. And much like the Raiders, they continue to defy gravity. They've had a few wobbles this season, and their attack still has got some way to go to be as potent as the Raiders, for example, or the Dolphins, who have got the best attack in the league. But defensively, they're still one of the best defences in the league, as they were last year. The Dragons, I mean, look, they are a frustrating team because they're not far away from being a top 8 side. And people were saying they would also be wooden spoon candidates under Shane Flanagan. But the 2 seasons he's been there, he's made them tough to play against. He's held the players accountable, but he's a coach under pressure. And his son Carl Flanagan's taking a lot of crap online because his dad is the coach. I think that's unfair. I mean, Ricky Stewart's son plays in the Raiders team, and he was very concerned that because it's his son and he's going to have to select him at some point, that he's going to get the same vitriol online. And he's been critical of the crap that Carl Flanagan's facing. Carl Flanagan is not the problem at the Dragons. That is a collective where players are not performing. And yeah, Shane Flanagan's gone out and criticised the refs for the defeat, but they are a frustrating side to watch because they have the ability to win games they're losing like this. They have that ability there. That within that team they have got good players. They're just so frustrating that they're still losing these close games, which other teams like the Bulldogs, for example, when they were losing close games like this in their learning seasons to get back into the top 8, they're now winning. The Dragons are just frustrating like that. They've had some really good wins this season against top 8 opposition, and then they've had some bad defeats in there against lower ranked opposition, and then they have some really close defeats. And they're just frustrating. They are very inconsistent. They're not out of the conversation for the top 8, but their points differential does hurt them. When teams around, like the Dolphins, for example, are much better with the points differential, that does hurt them a little bit. The Storm Sea Eagles, I think the rivalry's been reignited a little bit, hasn't it? The Sea Eagles winning 18 points to 16. The Storm are showing some warning signs that not all is well down in Melbourne. And Nelson Asafa-Solomona is going to be facing a couple of games out the side with a suspension if he takes an early guilty plea. Naughty boy. Discipline. Craig Bellamy was not happy with the performance, and yeah, Craig Bellamy. I mean, you need bellyache Cam because he's very entertaining in that coach's box. He just doesn't sit still. But the Storm have shown some signs this season that all is not well. That defeat to the Dolphins, that defeat to the Dragons, this defeat to the Sea Eagles, who are a team who've, I think, underperformed a little bit, been a little bit inconsistent this season, haven't played to their ability. Anthony Seibold is a coach under a bit of pressure. The Storm are not playing Storm-like, and they were expected to be minor premiers. They've now lost ground on the Raiders and the Bulldogs, and they're expected to be the favourites for the Premiership, because they were runners-up last year to Penrith. They're not playing Storm-like. They've been a bit inconsistent. They win one, lose one. They're not. There's some warning signs there that all is not well down in Melbourne. They're still a top four side. They, come finals, they might completely turn it on and become a steamroller. There's still time for them to make up that ground on the Raiders and the Bulldogs. They just need the Raiders and the Bulldogs to have a wobble here or there. But that defeat to the Sea Eagles is going to hurt. And next week there is going to be a response from them. There generally is after they have a defeat. They generally smash the next team and put in a performance. But this inconsistency is a bit of a concern, because you do that in the finals at the wrong time, and when it's sudden death, you're out. You are out. So, and they're not guaranteed to finish in the top four, because there's teams behind them who are hitting form at the right time, who are playing really well. Panthers, they may not finish in the top four. They're not guaranteed. We don't know what's going to happen over the next 6-7 rounds. So the Storm are a little bit vulnerable. If they continue with this inconsistency and teams behind them, like the Warriors and the Panthers, continue to win more than they lose, and in the Panthers' case, are building some momentum at a very good time in the season to hit form, the Storm could be in a bit of trouble. Tigers-Titans, 21-20. Adam Dewey with that field goal. I think this is a good sign for Benji Marshall with the way they won that game. Because last season they would have lost that game. This is showing the development that the Tigers have shown this season. And yes, there are question marks over the Galvin situation and De Silva and some of the dealings with Isaac Moses as a player agent, and how the roster's constructed, and there's been a lot of negativity surrounding the Tigers, coming off 3 wooden spoons. But last year they lose that game, so they've really come on. They are a much better side this season. Crucial win as well, because they're an outside chance to make the top 8, because there's teams above them and around them whose form has just completely fallen off a cliff, and the Tigers have started to win again lately. They've started to get a couple of wins going, so they can build some momentum, and teams around them are really struggling. They could be in a conversation going down to the wire where they're not out of a top 8 hunt. They can still be playing games that are relevant come the last couple of weeks of the season, which for the last 3 years they haven't been. They've been well off the pace. But they could be playing games that matter late in August, early September, which they haven't, as I say, done for quite some time. And I think Benji Marshall, considering the issues at the club and having to pay overs to get players and losing key players, I think Benji Marshall was doing a good job under tough circumstances. The Titans, on the other hand, look, that's one that got away. But we know Des Hasler's going to be out the door at the end of the season. We know there's going to be wholesale changes at the Titans in a coaching capacity at the end of the season. But they're struggling. They are struggling. They're losing games like this where they should be winning with the talent they have available in that squad. And but these are two sides that have massively underperformed over the years. Between them, there's only been 8 seasons where both these sides in total have made the top 8. These are two sides that are average at best, but entertaining game. As a neutral, that's an entertaining game. And then final game of the weekend, the Warriors beat the Knights 20 points to 15. The Warriors are missing potentially their best player in Metcalf. He's out for the rest of the season with that injury. They're finding ways to win and stay in the top 4 and stay in the conversation as an outsider, as a dark horse for the Premiership. The Knights, another defeat at home. They're not scoring enough points. I don't know where we go from here with the Knights. There's questions over Caelan Ponga's contract, whether he's going to stay at the club. Adam O'Brien as head coach, whether he's going to be there next year. this is a side under pressure. This is a coaching setup under pressure, and there's question marks if there's going to be a big clear out in the coaching staff as assistants, and whether Adam O'Brien's going to have a job. If they miss the top 8, I have a funny feeling Adam O'Brien's not going to be there. There's been a lot of speculation over his position in recent seasons, considering Caden Ponga's contract and the fact they haven't achieved what was hoped. Warriors, however, they're still finding ways to win, even though they're missing some of their best players. So they're staying relevant. The Broncos had the bye this weekend, and so they get a free 2 points. We will look at the NRL ladder. We will do a video looking at the NRL ladder and how teams are playing in the form guide and where I think the final ladder looks like, and what teams are struggling, what teams are doing really well. We'll have a little look at the NRL ladder in a separate video in the coming week. Now the NRLW, 3 weeks in. There's only one side that I think are really in deep trouble, and that's the Raiders. They lost 46 points to 12 to the Eels at home. That's 3 heavy defeats to start the season. That's worrying. I'm sorry, they've regressed. They've regressed. They narrowly miss out on the finals the previous 2 years in their first 2 years in the league. Not a good result at all. Not a good result at all. That's a really concerning performance. Their attack is anemic, and defensively they are being shredded. Absolutely shredded. So there are concerns there for me. And I'm a Raiders fan, and really worrying signs. Eels, that's one of their best performances ever as a team. And some records tumbled in that game for the Eels. The Bulldogs, Dragons. Bulldogs, it's their first year as an NRLW side. They had to lose at some point. The Dragons, post, Jamie Soward as head coach in the new era, 2 wins out of 3. Bulldogs 2 wins out of 3. Very close game, went down to the wire, 18 points to 14 to the Dragons. Really entertaining game, good advert for the women's game. I honestly think Bulldogs, Dragons and the Sharks, Cowboys were 2 of the best adverts for the women's game I think we could ever see. The Dragons deserved that. Bulldogs were not at their best. They were a little bit sloppy at times, a lot of handling errors in there. The Dragons stuck at it. They stuck at it. They fought their way back into the game. They win it at the death. Deserved winners. But either side could have deserved to have won that. That was a fun game to watch. Went down to the wire. And as a neutral, it was really entertaining. Same with the Cowboys Sharks. Cowboys winning 16 points to 14. The Sharks, there's a few warning signs that with the roster turnover and letting key players go, that they're not as strong as last year. Beaten grand finalists last year. Nearly came back with the best comeback of all time. If they had done that, that would have been the biggest comeback in NRLW history. They came up just short. But the Cowboys are having a really good start to the season as well. That's 2 wins out of 3 for the Cowboys. So that's a good sign for them. Sharks, close defeat. It's a tough defeat to take. There's got to be a response. And again, another close game. Really good advert for the women's game. That it's close and anyone can beat anyone. That's a really good advert. That there's a lot of parity in the NRLW. The Titans get their first win over the Tigers, 24 points to 12. So the Tigers are the other side that are still winless. Really important for the Titans, considering their attack in the first 2 weeks has been pretty anemic, and defensively they have struggled. So to get a statement win like that, get their season up and running, really important. Again, another side that's missing some players, some roster turnover, players obviously out injured, but that was a key performance, and some of their bigger name players stepped up. There's a lot of inexperience in some of the positions with the Titans, but that was a statement win from the Titans. Tigers, there were some positive signs there, but they're still searching for that elusive first win. And that's going to be the frustration, is they still haven't got a win yet to get their season up and running. And in a season that is as short as the NRLW is, giving up wins, letting your rivals have a head start of 2-3 wins, for example, 4 to 6 points head start, that's difficult to claw back. Very difficult to claw back. Although they have expanded the finals from 4 to 6 teams, by giving that head start to your rivals, that's tough. But I think the Tigers will be competitive this season. I hope they're competitive this season, but that's a tough defeat to take at home. The Broncos Roosters was an entertaining game as well. Another good advert for the women's game. The Roosters winning 30 points to 26. They had the Broncos all over the place in the first half, which surprised me considering how well the Broncos had played in the first 2 weeks, that the Roosters were that dominant. Even though defending champions and Broncos are everyone's favourites for the season. This felt like a grand final or a finals match because the Broncos fought back in the second half. It was in the balance. The Jess Surgis yellow card sin bin, that made it a very nervy last 3-4 minutes for the Roosters. There were some warning signs there. They were sloppy at times in that second half. So their game management led them down. The Broncos, though, seem to start slowly in games, so that is a weakness for the Broncos. So they're giving their opposition a head start, and there's only so long you can come from behind and win games. Now they got found out today by the Roosters because they couldn't come from behind because they had conceded too many points. But there are some sides in the competition, Eels for example, Knights for example, Warriors are quite entertaining. Titans have now got their attack clicking, although they've already played the Broncos. The Roosters, but if and when we get to finals they do that, that could be terminal. And there are some sides that can score some points and defend really well, like the Sharks, the Bulldogs, the Dragons. We've got some good defensive sides here. The Eels, there's some really good defensive sides here. Even the Warriors, they held the Eels to 0 last weekend. So if they're behind and got to chase a game, that could prove terminal. That really could. So important win for the Roosters, a good close game, went down to the wire. It's a great advert for the women's game. But the warning signs for both sides that they're not as invincible as they would like to think they are. So a game like that did expose both sides' weaknesses. There was definitely some game management issues, some handling issues. Both sides were trying to force the play at times unnecessarily. And defensively, both sides got to be exposed. So when they bring on those interchange players off the interchange bench, timing of that, for example, tactically, how they tactically kick, do they kick or pass on play 5, that kind of thing. Defensively, how they number up. There's various things that were exposed, but that's a good test for both sides, and there's room for improvement, which is scary for the rest of the NRLW. The Knights Warriors. The Knights are the only home side to win this weekend. They won 36 points to 20 over the Warriors. They had the Warriors all over the place in the first half. Their kicking game, the territory game, was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. They dominated the possession and the territory. The Warriors fought back, though. So, again, the Knights were really tested. The Warriors, they will not die wondering. They've got no fear. They're willing to throw the ball around. They're willing to spread it wide quick. Use dummy runners, strike runners as well. Not just hit it up the middle, but stretch it. Get some power runners on the ball. They're entertaining to watch, but at the same time, they had a slow start. They were behind the curveball, couldn't chase down the Knights. The Knights dominated that first half, put themselves in a winning position. But again, the Knights were exposed in the second half defensively. Their game management in the second half went a little bit awry. They allowed the Warriors back into the game, made it nervy for themselves. So the Roosters, Broncos, and Knights, there's some weaknesses there. There are. They're not as invincible as they could be, and these are the best sides in the NRLW. These are the sides that have won all the grand finals, and they showed vulnerability. So there is hope for everyone else. The Eels look the most dangerous side that haven't won a grand final yet in the NRLW to potentially unseat the Roosters, Broncos, or Knights. But it's been a great 3 weeks to start the season in the NRLW. I have to admit that it has been a great 3 weeks, really entertaining. And so far, apart from the Raiders and Tigers, everyone can beat anyone. So it's very balanced. There's a lot of parity there, which is good to see, especially with expansion, with it being a 12-team league now. That was a concern that some of the newer sides would struggle. Like the Bulldogs and Warriors, there was a concern that how strong would those rosters be. I've got no worries that this is going to be a very fun season. The only team I'm really, really concerned about is the Raiders, and I'm a Raiders fan, and I think the way they've started the season is very worrying. 0-3, 3 heavy defeats. Their attack is struggling as well, and that's a real concern. But there we go. So that is round 20 of the NRL and round 3 of the NRLW reviewed. Thank you very much for watching. How did your teams do this weekend? And also I will be doing an NRL ladder video looking at the NRL standings after round 20, what teams are in the top 8, what teams are outside the top 8, the form guide a little bit. That's going to be a fun video to look at in the week. But for me for now, thank you very much for watching, and I will have some more content for you all very, very soon.